Thank you, everybody, for coming this afternoon. We have with us today Dr. Greg Benner from University of Washington Tacoma campus. I'm not going to give very much of an introduction. He has his Doctor of Philosophy from University of Nebraska, and he's a professor at Washington Tacoma and Executive Director for the Center for Strong Schools.
Yep.
So please welcome Dr. Benner.
All right. Thank you all very much. It's an honor to be here with you all today. It's an honor to be here at USC Upstate. It's a joy. Thank you for this opportunity. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a dad. I have 4 kids. I've been married for 19 years. We're coming up on our 20th anniversary here pretty soon. And I've been at University of Washington Tacoma now for almost 15 years. I started out as an assistant professor 2003 and was tenured in 2007, full professor 2010, 2012, asked to start up a Center for Strong Schools focused on outreach and transforming our communities and schools, and that's what I've been doing since 2012, is running the Center for Strong Schools, and I have a great life. It's an awesome life, and so I want to thank you all for the opportunity to share a little bit about myself and why I might be a good fit for the Dean of the School of Education here. So I'm going to walk you through an approach for building community partnerships and transforming our communities called the Tacoma Whole Child Initiative. We now call it Whole Child Initiative because it's an approach that can be used in any community, anywhere, to, in a grassroots fashion, transform our community. So I want to walk you through a little bit about that and how perhaps this may look here using the collective strengths that we all have in this room and collectively within the SOE and as a university, leveraging our assets and strengths to make great things happen in our communities. So contemporary issues, that was the topic of this. So this presentation addresses these contemporary issues. The need to produce publicly engaged scholarship as opposed to more ivory tower type traditional forms of research, and I know that's what you prize here at Upstate. Use-inspired research, publicly engaged. The importance of equity, building equity within the SOE, equity as a university, but also boosting equity. And when I think of equity, I think that we're understanding and meeting needs. And we all are different, we're all unique. We celebrate our uniqueness, our identities, but the goal is, of course, to meet needs, whatever those may be, and create systems to understand and meet needs not only of our youth, but our educators, to produce whole educators, healthier, happier, more successful educators. That's an equity issue. Community partnerships, professional learning, the importance of building professional learning with our pre-service educators, and then in addition, in-service, because learning doesn't end once we get our endorsements and our certification. It's professional learning means we build systems to support the professional growth of our candidates as they enter their careers and progress throughout their careers. And that's what the Whole Child Initiative can provide, is ongoing job-embedded professional development, which is an evidence-based approach to build our capacity to sustain the capacity of our educators. The importance of collective impact, and I know we have the Spartanburg academic movement, SAM, which is the collective impact approach for our community. Where I'm for Spartanburg, from my community, we have what's called Graduate Tacoma. We also have South King County Collective Impact, or the Roadmap Project, which are 2 examples. But that's a very big contemporary issue, and now there's 70 different cities that are engaging in collective impact across the United States. That is a contemporary movement or issues across cities, and I'd like to introduce how Whole Child can fit within the existing SAM approach, Spartanburg academic movement, which is occurring within our community here in Spartanburg. And last, the importance of schools and schools of education. We can't do it alone. We have to use the expertise of our School of Nursing, our expertise on this campus and outside this campus. The Whole Child Initiative brings together child welfare, juvenile justice, social work, urban studies, brings together our expertise in education, psychology, mental health, because if we're truly going to meet the needs of the whole child, it's going to have to be all in. We like to say this, we say all means all, y'all. in Tacoma, where I'm from, and we mean that. So it really does take an all means all in approach like that. So institutional priorities here at Upstate. There's 4 key institutional priorities. The Whole Child Initiative fits well in all of these, but especially this one, the community engagement piece, which I'll highlight as we progress ahead. So Whole Child, this is, give me a thumbs up, sideways, thumbs down. I've seen this graphic before. Okay, a few thumbs down, a few thumbs up. This comes from ASCD, which used to be called the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, ASCD. Now they just call it ASCD. It's the largest professional development organization in our field. And a few years back, ASCD brought together expertise with the Center for Disease Control, National Institutes of Health, in addition to our expertise in schools, Department of Education, bringing together learning and health into a coordinated approach. Some call this a public health approach, but not just focused on health, but learning and learning outcomes, but braiding them together. And I think that's one of the outcomes, of course, of Spartanburg Academic Movement, or SAM, is to weave together the health and learning of our youth and each other in a coordinated fashion, a public health or prevention, or some call it population health now as well. But the Whole Child Initiative began with this in mind. How do we produce youth who are healthy, safe, engaged, supported, and challenged? And not just academically, but their physical health, emotional health, mental health as well. So here's the big picture. The Whole Child Initiative, there's 4 key shifts. How many shifts? 4. You got, just checking to see if you're paying attention. 4 key shifts. Shift number 1, as you can see, focuses on schools. Where I'm from, schools were the epicenter for the transformation that's occurred across the entire city of Tacoma. It all started here as we transformed our schools to create healthy, safe, positive, engaging learning environments and meeting the needs of the whole child inside the schools. Now we have 455 community partners and 70 different organizations that are applying this same prevention approach in those same organizations. So in these organizations we have child welfare, we have mental health, we have out of school time, so like Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, YWCA, in those, a lot of organizations that work with our youth after school, summer learning, again, across sector. And they're applying the same, very similar approaches, as you can see, to what we're doing in the schools. And the reason why that's important is it adds stability, it adds safety, and it adds nurturing to our students' cradle to career, wherever they go, in all the environments that our youth move through across the city of Tacoma, whether they be in the school, in a community organization. Even our families now are leading the effort to bring whole child into homes. And that has to be parent-led, family-led, not professional-led. So in a grassroots fashion now, we have family leadership teams at each of our schools that are leading the effort, families, caregivers, leading the effort to move whole child practices, these similar practices, moving them into home environments. Because any parents in here? A lot of us? We need all the help we can get. Is that true? I mean, like, look, I have a 17-year-old. That's all I need to say. I got a 17-year-old, right? It's a challenge for us, and we may be very knowledgeable about mental health, about evidence-based practices, academic practices. We have a lot to learn. It's humbling how much we all have to learn. But families leading the effort to bring whole child practices into the home, parent-led. This is a community group-led. And this is school, folks inside school environments, leadership teams, leading the effort to bring whole child into every school, 65 schools. And then here is where we're at now too. We have 55 neighborhoods assembling neighborhood leadership teams. Folks within each of those 55 neighborhoods who love their neighborhoods, want to make their neighborhoods more livable, more safe, more accessible, and healthier too, because community health is an important thing, the health of a neighborhood, but helping neighborhood leadership teams leading the effort to transform their neighborhoods to become more livable, healthier, more positive. And we have data systems that we can use to do that. So what you see here is 4 shifts, and through these 4 shifts, the outcome of it all is we can create a a more vibrant city, a city that has a system of support for our youth that spans from cradle to career, and really brings the greatest likelihood of youth success comes out of this. 60% of Tacoma kids stay in Tacoma, so the investment is that if we can do this really, really well, our future leaders of our city will emerge out of systems that we can build like this, that are sustainable systems. So here's again just some of the Shift 2 part, some of the representative groups within that. So we have City of Tacoma, early learning, out of school, STEAM, there, college support, and so on, and including our faith-based organizations, which are often left out of discussions within communities like this, or left out of dialogue about collective impact. They need to be part. This is lesson learned from our work in Tacoma and other cities. They reach our kids. They have, they make big differences in the lives of our youth. They need to be part of the work we're doing and play a role in that. So here's just a list of some of the logos of 455 community partners that are part of this. And there's power that comes when you link arms together for the greater good. And that's what's occurring in Tacoma. And what I'd like to have discussions with you all about here is how do we learn from what we've done there, learn from all the good things happening here, and to make what we're doing even better and better, and then bringing it out to other places, other communities, other cities in our country. I love this quote. This is from my mentor in Tacoma. His name's Lyle Kwasim. He's the chair of the Tacoma Black Collective, and he waited 50 years, 50 years of, and I could tell many stories about Lyle. 50 years he waited, and he worked grassroots, and he led an effort called Safe Streets, which was a big effort to, in a neighborhood, door-to-door way, reduce crime, improve safety in our neighborhoods, reduce gang involvement, drug involvement. And I love this quote from him because this is the first time we have all the right people in all the right places, and the buy-in at the schools, the community, and the school board. Tacoma Whole Child Initiative, we call it TWCI, some call it TWICI. There, teachers do acronyms, it's all good. Gives us a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to give our children a wonderful and fulfilling life. And Lyle taught us, lessons about how to actually not only implement this whole child approach, but to keep it going successfully in a grassroots way. We learned from Lyle. We learn from leaders at Starbucks, at Microsoft. We learn from folks in the churches. We learn from folks at the barbershop. We learn from folks at the soccer game, on the ball fields, about what do we believe in, what do we want to do, and how do we sustain this great work in a grassroots way. So I give a big shout out to Lyle. I want to show you all a video. Can I show you a video? And as you see this video, I'm going to take you inside a school. This is one of our middle schools in Tacoma. And I want to give you a look at what this means to a child. This is a middle schooler. And I want you to reflect as you watch this video, it's about 4 minutes, on what does it mean in the life of Eli? What has the Whole Child Initiative brought to him and his family and his future? Let's take a look.
Very good. You send your children to school to learn, and you hope that that's what they're doing. Ever since elementary school, Eli has had some struggles and challenges with being focused and doing the right thing, making good choices. I'm so free to take pictures of
you. Eli is exceptionally bright, charismatic, and he has quite the sense of humor.
He has attended 3 schools in his young life. And my observation that in the first 2 schools he attended, they were quick to pull the trigger on disciplinary. They didn't practice patience.
I would get in trouble a lot more in elementary school. Like, go to the officer, get a call home, or get suspended.
Basically, Eli, the reason why I called you up is because I wanted to touch base with you about the
In
conversation
the
we had about
hustle and bustle of the day and in the school setting, traditionally you like to fall back on what's punitive, and that's not helpful at all to our students. They need to learn the better way. And it's really just a matter of being able to walk a student through instead of you're out, walking them through the scenario of what happened and finding out ways to help them to understand what could have been done differently.
We teach in our Whole Child Initiative
Any mistake a child makes, quote mistake, is really a chance for that child to learn how to manage their behavior more successfully. It's an opportunity for them to learn. It's an opportunity for us to learn as well. Rather than push them out, let's pull them in.
The thing that has most impressed me with them is their patience. You know, Mrs. Johnson and I had a conversation when Eli had an issue at school, and I could hear her sigh, but it wasn't a sigh of disdain. It was, hey, you know what? I'm working with him. You know, this again is another issue. But, you know, and I had to laugh to myself because I know what she has invested in my son.
We don't want students to become a number. We want them to be an individual. I love the whole child initiative because it talks about what are their personalities like, and what are their backgrounds like.
We can't force behavior change on kids, and that's true with adults too. Change happens from the inside out, not the outside in, and the more we try to force it, it just doesn't happen. And we all adults learn that the hard way with our kids, don't we?
You can get kids to move mountains if you can relate to them and respect them as people. You know, sometimes when you call a parent when a kid is doing bad all the time, I do try to make it my way to, I say I need to give a phone call or let them know they be doing something good.
Whenever I hear, Mr. Moss, this is Mr. Wright, I'm thinking, oh, what has he done now? And he says, look, Eli's not in trouble. I just want to call you to let you know that he had a good day today. And then there's a sigh of relief on my part.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I finally getting a phone call, they doing something positive.
By building these skills up in some of these kids that are struggling a lot in the classroom and being distracting and so on, that in time we will know that these kids they'll transform, they'll turn around, and they'll make our community better long term.
I think the takeaway from that is to show the student, hey, we want to learn. We're here to help you. We're here to work with you. And I think Eli has began to grasp that and understand it.
Students need to have a fighting chance in this world, and if we turn them off from learning at a young age, that's how you end up with adults who are turned off from life.
Every day. All right. So let's do a little elbow partner, quick 30-second chat here. So what does the Whole Child Initiative mean to Eli and his family? I'll give you 30 seconds. Ten seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Give me 5. All right, thanks everybody. All right, was that a great video? Yeah. Right, and I know you watched the video and you probably had a good little short discussion with the person next to you about what this means to Eli. It's a game changer. That's what it is. It changes, completely changes the trajectory. Eli's a leader, and sometimes without support systems like this, youth, and there's a lot of youth, like Eli, half of kids were not graduating from high school in Tacoma, Washington in 2010, about half, right? And if you're a student of color, it's about a third were graduating from high school. That's tragic. That can't happen. But now what we've done is create a system citywide. And now Eli is understood. We understand him. We have data on his personality, on his strengths, his assets, his goals in life. And we can build on those assets and strengths to help now Eli reach his full potential and to better meet his needs. What you just saw is the essence of equity. And equity means we change the system and create a new system so that our youth are understood and their needs are met. It's not just about the youth as well. It is about us educators too, because we have needs. Our needs need to be met, and we need to be a whole educator. Yeah, we want whole children, but we want whole educators too, because they're difference makers in the lives of our youth. So it has transformed his family life as well, and that brings hope, brings optimism and excitement in our community. So I want to just take, I know I only have about 15 minutes, I think, thereabouts. I know Rob's probably watching my time. So I just want to give you a couple of ideas here to kind of wrap up. I want to tell you why this is important, how this was able to occur, and then what kind of practices are part of this whole child approach. And I want to mention right off the bat, this is not a canned thing. It is authentic, it is customizable, it is grassroots. So what you saw here is not, oh, we're going to take this canned thing and bring it here. Not that at all. It's grassroots, we create it together. So let me share with a couple thoughts. Again, all these comprehensive high schools, 55% graduation rates. Here's some of the news articles about how bad the schools are, and this is the narrative. You know, article after article about how terrible our schools are. Dropout factories, right? Now we're known, and just like 2 years ago, this is America's Promise. That group from DC looked at all the school districts across the country and identified 2 as the top 2 in the whole United States. And we were one of those 2, and they called Tacoma, Washington a West Coast Dream Team. This is just a screenshot of the PowerPoint presentation. West Coast Dream Team and some of the good outcomes we've been able to produce there, which is amazing. Look at these graduation rates. Again, about 50%, and now we're up here at 85% and holding steady, and that's across demographic groups. Beyond high school, where are graduates going? So again, 85% are graduating from high school. We're working with those other 15%, of course, but where are they going? 51%. You know, we track this. A lot of school districts and a lot of folks like ourselves, we don't track these indicators. This is called Verified Acceptance to the Next Institution, VANI, Verified Acceptance to the Next Institution. It's not enough just to graduate. Where are we going from there? And so 51%, 21% going community college. We also have another chunk there. They're going career technical, vocational education. We're building those pipelines. So it's not just, you know, post-secondary college there, which is important. I just take a second here. These are students without suspensions or expulsions. And right here is 6th and 8th grade. But I want to just highlight the trend here. As we started in 2012, you can see the trends here heading upward. And we've already met our district goals for 2018 for both 6th and 8th graders here, as you can see here. So the big concept too is that we're creating inclusive, equitable environments where we're not pushing kids out anymore. Not pushing kids out to the hallway, pushing them out to the office, pushing them out to be suspended. We're pulling them in. And that's the thing that you just saw in that video as well. We need to create systems that are inclusive and not just talk the talk, but walk the walk of transforming our systems. These data indicate that we're actually doing that. We have more and more kids not getting suspended, which is powerful. 6th, 8th grade, same thing, 9th and 12th grade, the trends here, as you can see here, more kids not getting suspended, which is powerful. And when they do get, when there are incidents, as you saw in the video, we're using restorative practices and trauma-sensitive practices. And a lot of our youth, we have about 40 to 50% of our youth with 5 or more adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. It's the wrong thing to do to push a kid who's homeless, getting trafficked, abused, and so on, pushing them out of our schools. That is an injustice, and so we're building a system where that doesn't occur anymore. The social emotional well-being of our youth is improving. These are just some data points for you data folks out there. These are the kind of outcomes that if I were to be able to have the honor to work with y'all, these are kind of the outcomes we would produce together. We'd work on it. We'd figure it out. We'd make it work. We'd work with our 7 school districts here locally, roll up our sleeves. We don't have all the answers. We'd work on answers together alongside our colleagues in our schools. We would produce together better outcomes. I know we're doing great, and we could do even better than we're doing today. Social emotional well-being. We learn how to measure that and track it in our youth. We measure this for every kid in Tacoma 3 times per year, the social emotional well-being of our youth. So we have data on that and how well we're doing. And we meet needs. If we have youth that are struggling a bit, we provide supports immediately to youth who may be in crisis or may be struggling in their social emotional well-being. Look at the perceptions, by the way, briefly on how the safety of our schools, the perception both from the student, parent, and teacher perception of safety on the rise dramatically. That's important. that our parents, our youth, and our teachers view schools as safe. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Safety is a basic need. We need safe school environments. That's great to hear that. So another thing is absenteeism. Chronic absenteeism is dropping significantly. So we only have now 4% of our youth that are chronically absent. See that? So which is great. Here's the key concept. You want to go where everybody knows your, let's do that one more time. You want to go where everybody knows your what? Name. And they're always glad you got it. So that's the truth, isn't it? I know that's very cliche, but it's so true. Eli, do you think Eli likes coming to school? He does. He's welcomed. He's greeted by at least 4 caring adults before he even steps foot in the classroom. Every kid greeted by 4 caring adults per day, every kid, before they even step foot in the classroom. At the end of the day, it's the same thing. Warm welcomes, high engagement, youth leadership. My needs are met. I'm well understood. I want to be there. I want to be in that environment. I like coming to school. That's powerful, isn't it? That's how schools should be. Wouldn't you agree? So, a couple of other things. We do have implicit biases. We do have institutional racism. These are realities. Are we changing the hearts of our educators? Look at this statement. All students are entitled to a positive interaction with me. 4% of teachers believe that before. 93% now believe that through Tacoma Whole Child Initiative. So what these data indicate, and I won't read them to you, is that changing hearts. You got to change and capture the hearts of educators. And unless you change a person's heart, their behaviors will not change. I know that sounds very obvious, doesn't it? But if you think of big changes you've made in your life, where big habits have changed, it started in here, and then it moved to your mind, and then it moved to your behavior. But it has to start with your heart. And I know that sounds very cliche, but it's so powerful and true. We have to capture the hearts of those who interact with our youth and change their hearts and change the way they view the youth that they serve. And there you go. Another one, teaching kids how to behave is the parent's job, not mine. 80% agreed with that before, now less than 10% agree with that. And we're still making progress on that. Again, data on how have the hearts of educators changed? They have changed in a very big way across the whole city. I want to take a second. This is a problem in our schools, is that we start something to start the year. Oh, we're going to do RTI this year. That's our big investment. We're going to make a big push on RTI. And then we get going with it. We do a big hard push to get going RTI. And then, oh, this isn't working. And lots of pushback. Folks aren't buying in. We have a mutiny on staff in it. And then it's like by April, it's like, okay, that didn't work. I promise staff, I'm the principal, we're not going to do it anymore. We're going to move forward with a different initiative. And still you have a few that hang on to it. But now we're on to the next thing. We're going Avid now. Okay, we're moving on that. Oh, this isn't working so great. So let's move on to PBIS. This isn't working for us, so now let's move on to this, and this, and this, and this, and this. There's a book by Jamie Vollmer called Schools Can't Do It Alone, and it's a book about what happens in schools where we end up having way too many things going on. And that's what teachers will say to you, I have too much on my plate. And the problem is these initiatives start piling up and compounding, and it becomes impossible. And we lose sight of what we're truly all about and our main purpose and goals as a school and as a school district. So what Whole Child Initiative does, in short, is not do this anymore, but instead have a few things that we really want to do really, really well. And in Tacoma, we have one thing we want to do really well, which is Whole Child. And there's 8 little puzzle pieces that help us to do that really well, including social emotional learning, whole child accountability, implementation, 8 puzzle pieces. Not, well, we had 280 different initiatives going. I'm not even kidding you. And if you take a look at some of our districts and you take stock of the number of initiatives they have going, it will be around that number. 280, 250 different initiatives. And what that makes it makes it impossible to sustain change over time. And it makes it impossible to continuously improve over time and to deliver on our most important things. So we want to do our most important things extremely well and do them in a sustainable way and continuously improve upon those practices. Another important thing, and I know I need to wrap up here, Rob, I'm sure, social and emotional learning is the foundation of it all. And the reason why it needs to be the foundation of it all is that kids won't want to be in schools or in classrooms or working with adults who are exclusionary, toxic, have unhealthy interactions with them, they're not going to want to come to school. So we have to create safe, engaging, positive, healthy learning environments first. And if we do that really, really, really well, we're going to create what we just saw at Truman Middle School there, where students like Eli are going to be understood, they're going to feel safe, they're going to feel respected, they're going to be treated responsibly by the adults in those settings. And then from there we can move forward with meeting academic needs and so on. But we can't close the achievement gap or achievement gaps in anyone's life until we first close this engagement gap first. We can't put the cart ahead of the horse. So we have to create environments that are all about youth engagement, and then we can move toward closing achievement gaps. And that's an important concept I think that we can learn here in Spartanburg. Yeah, we're all about achievement, achieve, 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 but let's engage first. Boost engagement up. And that's the recipe for this. But these 5 competencies, SEL, in our adult language we call these emotional intelligence. And I applaud Upstate as a campus for not only with the candidates you work with, the students you work with here at Upstate, you're building these skills, which is a beautiful thing. These are also called 21st century skills or life skills. Some call them soft skills. We call it a lot of different names for the same thing, but you're building these in the work you do with the students here at Upstate, and I've seen the data on these. You're producing great outcomes with this. We need to do the same thing K-12. By focusing on SEL, on average, we'll have an 11 percentile rank increase on achievement scores. So again, punctuating, you build SEL, you build engagement, and it will produce achievement outcomes. And I know a lot of us don't miss that. Well, if I focus on SEL and behavior, I won't be able to get kids to standard academically. No, it's just the opposite is true. By creating a welcoming, safe, healthy learning environment, you're going to maximize learning outcomes for the youth you serve. And I hope that message can be conveyed. I'd love to help lead that message, not only here in Spartanburg, but across this whole state and this whole country. Okay? So I got a virus threat. That's a good thing. Yeah, that's like, whoa, good timing on that. That means it's time to end, doesn't it, Rob? The other important thing briefly here too, and this is where we can align, it's good to be in the same building with our School of Nursing here, because if our colleagues from School of Nursing were here, they may say, oh, we know a lot about ACEs, or Adverse Childhood Experiences, and because we've learned about ACEs, it's a public health issue. Matter of fact, some would say the biggest public health issue in our country is adverse childhood experiences. The greater number of ACEs that you have, the worse the health outcomes in your life, the life expectancy, and so on. So ACEs are a big issue. In the state of Washington, on average, this is the number of ACEs, the prevalence of ACEs in an average high school classroom in Washington State here. The number of ACEs on average high school classroom that youth would be experiencing. And I just want to highlight this. On average, there's about 20% of youth, Washington State on average, adolescents, with 5 or more adverse childhood experiences. And you may be getting feedback from your candidates and folks in the schools that say, look, we have a lot more trauma. We have a lot more mental health issues, more than we've ever seen before, especially early childhood, kindergarten. That's the biggest age group now where there's disproportional discipline practices occurring. When you look across age groups now, the highest prevalence of disproportional discipline is early childhood kindergarten. I don't know if you know those data nationally. But big picture here, we've got to address this public health issue in a collective impact fashion of the issue of adverse childhood experiences and building in protective factors into our schools to build resilience up in our youth and make school mental health part of things, trauma-sensitive practices. We have to change how we operate now because of the prevalence of adverse childhood experience and the severity of how some of these behaviors will be manifested. These are future leaders in our city, by the way, too. Students like Eli, others, they are leaders. And if we harness their leadership capabilities to make our community better, that's the goal of all of this. So you may have had many, many challenges, major difficulties in your life, but now the next step is to harness all the good inside you and your potential and now move it toward outcomes. And some in this room probably, you might have been this kid, that kid. You might have had a lot of hurt, a lot of loss in your own life. And now look where you are now. And it was mentoring, it was coaching, it was a good teacher who helped you get where you are today, right? So that's the goal of this, is to create systems where youth are understood and this kid's not pushed out anymore, but pulled in, and we support that youth. Outcomes for teachers, if you were a group of teachers, I say, anyone want better health in here? And you all raise, yeah, I want that. Anyone want less stress? Teachers, anyone want less stress in your jobs? Teachers have the most on-the-job stress of any profession. You all know that? So for teachers, this is a no-brainer. Like, yeah, I want to do this like right now. Help us know what we want to do next to bring whole child to our school, because I want less stress, I want more engagement, more time to teach, I want to stay in the field, I want to boost my self-efficacy, I want that. Tell me how to get that going, I want that. And so it's easy to create that inside-out change, because when you have a whole staff of educators in a school, like, we want this, we want the training, we want the coaching, bring it to us. That's where change occurs. You have that, you captured their hearts, and now they want the training. You're not forcing it on them. It's not top down, it's inside out. You create that inside out, I want this. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it for my kids. Bring me the training, coaching, whatever it takes. We want this. I want less stress. I'm burnt out, I'm exhausted. We have half of our teachers leaving the field. Special educators is higher than that. So we got to do something different. So with that, I need to wrap up. And I want to say thank you all very much. I'll answer questions if there are some, and thank you for your time today. Go ahead, Jim.
Dr. Brennan, your study excites me because it mirrors something that I've been watching the last couple of years in physical activity. John Rady's, and he's almost expressing the same numbers, looking at the same things, but he's basing it on physical activity and the outcomes. In the whole child, the TWCI movement, where does physical activity fit in with what you're doing with this Welcome in the School? Yeah,
thank you so much. And when I use that term social and emotional learning, physical activity is a very big part of that. You know, healthy body, healthy mind. Active body, active mind. We have that mantra. So here's some specific things that we do within schools to create that. Number one, introducing our teachers to just incorporating more movement into activities. And SEL, as you know, is interactive. We want to work together, we want to talk, we want to get up and move. We want to incorporate brain breaks and teacher talk, brain breaks, little movement activities into that. And that helps our youth stay more engaged in learning activities. When we incorporate just a minute here, a minute there of some movement, some class greeting activities, more meetings and different things like that. The other things that and I mentioned to you at lunch about this, at our middle schools now, about 70% of middle school classrooms in Tacoma now have like an exercise bike in them. I know that's radical, but our youth a lot of times are transitioning from class to class and they just need 3 minutes on the exercise bike while they're reading a book or studying something, and incorporating that opportunity to move a little bit inside the classroom. And for younger students, it's more like flexible seating, flexible classrooms, the big bouncy ball kind of thing, or exercise ball, things like that they can sit on, be more comfortable. It's hard to sit at a desk for 6 hours, shocker. So we need to be more developmentally responsive, kid responsive, and incorporate more movement like that. So good question. Yeah, thank you.
Tacoma has an organization called Graduate Tacoma.
Yeah. And
they're very quality improvement and data oriented. Have you had interactions with them?
Yeah, every day. So what you've seen here is the Tacoma Whole Child Initiative is more kind of the inside out change process for the whole city. Graduate Tacoma is more the strive or collective impact, so more the top down, looking at the data and our outcomes for our kids across the whole city, and what are we doing well, what do we need to improve upon, and they provide especially like the data analytics pieces on that. And they also are a convener. They convene a lot of our groups across the city in a really big way, which is the strive approach is excellent for that, or collective impact. What we do though is get inside the schools. Like I've tried to describe here, is produce that inside-out change that builds and builds and builds, and then Graduate Tacoma does kind of the top-down. Yeah, absolutely. See that?
How many school districts do you have?
Well, we only have one big school. Well, it's not big by your standards. There's about 65 schools, okay? So just one. And we've expanded Whole Child now to our tribal community, our indigenous community, which is called Chief Leshai schools, or Puyallup tribal schools. And as I mentioned to some of you earlier, that we didn't know where to scale this out to next. We have a lot of districts that say, we want this, but we felt like it was the right thing to do, to partner with our indigenous community to be the next place we scale out to. So we'll partner with them for the next decade, and then from there, I don't know. There's a lot of other communities that want to learn from what we're doing and to replicate it, and perhaps the next place could be right here. We don't know, but.
So we've had our numbers as far as our pre-service teachers who are coming to us have dropped, and I think that's
Hmm.
statewide.
Yeah.
How have y'all, or has that been a part of your program for encouraging persons to go into teaching?
Yeah, we need to improve on that, I will say, being transparent. And our where I work, University of Washington Tacoma now is working on a grow your own type process where we can, because what you saw in the video and what's been I've tried to convey here is this is a whole citywide thing. And so we have, paraprofessionals, we have bus drivers, we have folks at like Boys and Girls Club, the Y, other community groups, faith-based groups that do a lot of amazing work with kids, but they're not certificated. And so our next step right now is that as we do trainings and activities and coaching work inside the schools, is to start now recruiting and create pipelines where folks that we're doing trainings with, and there's 455 community organizations, right? And in those 65 schools and so on, but creating a pipeline now where as we're doing trainings, folks can get credit for it as they're going to trainings and ongoing PD, get credit for it, and then move towards certification. And the great thing is we have very high confidence that what we're training them on is, what urban educators need. It works, it's effective, very practical. So that's the next step. Thank you for asking that.
So I appreciate your sharing the whole child, and I'm excited to see the results you're having there. I'm going to build off of Laura's question in asking how you feel that your very concentrated effort with this particular program is going to transfer to kind of the more expansive duties of the dean, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So recruitment, retention, supporting faculty, negotiating the world of the university, student, college student interactions and success. So how do you see this experiencing scaling up and preparing you for all those jobs?
Absolutely, and that's a very salient question here. What I've tried to do with this presentation is maybe not address all of those things that you're asking about, but to give a window inside, well, what does, I think, a great example of what I might bring in terms of a community partnership and being outward facing and being very visible. What might that look like if we were to partner together and do things like this in the community? But I just want to punctuate, I do have a lot of experience with budgets, with finance, with supervision, because what's not conveyed here is all the work and leadership that's needed to make this happen, all the things we need to do inside the university to create the Center for Strong Schools and to staff it appropriately, to get fundraised for it, to help staff grow in their capacity, my own staff help build their own capacity, which has been a remarkable experience to see my staff develop their skills and have successes, and now some of them have moved on to big positions and professorships at other university and so on. But I do have a lot of experience and success internally in addition to externally. But I want to be able to do both really well. I want to be able to have internal success and make sure that our staff and faculty are very well understood, very supported, that opportunities are being created, and we're changing how we operate and our infrastructure to bring about the best in each other, and in addition, bring about the best in our kids in the community. So, yeah.
Are your students at the university involved in the whole child?
Yeah. They are. Our students are placed, their student teaching placements are in Tacoma schools. So by the time they've had, a lot of them come to UW-T because of Whole Child. When you build it, they will come. I know that's another cliche thing, but it's very true. When you build something special, people want to be part of it. And they want to be at the institution that's going to help them become a whole educator. And so we now have used this as a recruitment tool, and as we make it more and more visible, which is something I'd like to bring here too, is telling our story really well and bring it to them, because our youth are using Twitter, they're using Instagram, LinkedIn, et cetera, the web, and so we need to very much create that presence so that our youth know that this is what we're all about, this is what we do really, really well, look at how we transform schools. But so my students that I work with, and right now I'm teaching a behavior management class, I'm just finishing up right now, but it's beautiful because I get to work with my students once a week, train them on strategies, and then they're out in their placement seeing those strategies implemented by their cooperating teacher, and they're talking the same talk. because I'm working with their cooperating teachers in the real world providing training. And then at night, I work with our candidates, training them on those same practices. And sometimes our cooperating teachers learn from our candidates on some specific things too, as you know. So, yep, it's a system. Anything else? Okay.
Can I ask
Yeah, please do. Greta, right?
Yes. So if you come to Upstate as our dean,
Mhm.
I'm just curious what you think, how you'll go about what you'll do the first, like, 3-4 weeks.
Yeah.
What would be the first kind of, you know,
Two things. First, I'm going to listen, but I'm not just going to listen. I'm going to listen actively, and I'm going to respond to what you tell me. I want to hear about your hopes and dreams. I really do. I want to know what your, Greta's hopes and dreams are. What are your hopes and dreams? What do you want to accomplish? You know, where do you see yourself? I really want to know that. I really authentically want to know that. And then I'm not just going to nod my head like this and say, oh, interesting. But I'm going to be taking notes for 45 minutes, an hour, however long it takes for you to take, this is who I am, this is what I want to be, and how I want to grow as a scholar, as a teacher, and as a service provider. This is how I want to grow. And then what I'm going to do is work with you to help you get there. And if it means creating new things, new infrastructures, giving you a research quarter, finding ways in which to help you accomplish where you want to go. And I also hope that we can start creating collaborations here, you know, working more closely together and aligning our work more. And that's what sort of we see occurring here, is that if we can partner together on partnerships, research and apply, you know, the research that you have maybe in your mind can fit nicely within an existing partnership structure. We can also collaborate on finding funding for you to carry out your hopes and dreams. And it's not just faculty here, folks, staff. Bottom line is our staff get the work done and making sure that hopes and dreams of our staff are well understood and met. But that'll be a big thing. And I think also part of that is a needs assessment. You know, what are our strengths and a true accurate look? You know, and sometimes that can be uncomfortable, but how are we doing collectively? What are our needs? What are our strengths? And then let's work collectively together to go about addressing some of the needs that we have. And I'm sure in this room, if we started talking about it, we'd say you could probably come up with a list. But I want to understand what's happening here, take inventory, and then move toward a process where we can address those needs and accomplish our ambitions together. So
what do you see your role in assessment reports, accreditation, those kinds of things?
that's a strength of mine. We just completed that process and met with the committee this morning about that. I played a very active role in our institutional report and getting planning for our site visit and getting all the things done. We were very successful across programs and standards for our accreditation at UW-Tacoma, which is a very comparable institution to Upstate. So my experiences have been a lot like all of yours in this room. Our campus is 25 years old. 5,000 students at UW-Tacoma, where I'm from. We're kind of a branch campus, so to speak, of the University of Washington. There's a lot of, I think I can resonate, pretty well with you, but accreditation is a strength of mine. Report writing is a strength of mine. Evaluation is a strength of mine. I have a pretty extensive vita of publishing and report writing and evaluation. I've done a little less of that recently because I'm very much on the implementation side and leadership piece, but, right. Any other thoughts, folks? I want to thank you. It's an honor. Y'all feel it today? So thank you. Thank you all.